Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of Make Mine Mayday. It's a brand new year, brand new recording, and a brand new May. That's right. Brand new episode, our first recording of 2023 here on the network. Welcome back. It's been we had a great new year. Before we get started, we got to thank our patrons at patreon.com/SpideyDude Network. We got Vinkman, Scott, Greg, Phoenician, Kale, Georgia, Jessica, Catherine, Cindy, and Jurgen. Thank you guys. As well as Laura and Keeger. Thank you guys for your support over on patreon.com/SpideyDude Network. This episode, of course, we're going to be covering the brand new May saga. And before we get started, we always like to mention that there will be some references probably to some live comments and or visual aids. If you're listening to the audio edition of this program, you will hear some references to that. Pay that no mind, or always go over to youtube.com/SpideyDude Radio Network. I'm Zach Joyner, and I am joined with Kelly McDaniel.
Hello, hello.
And we are back. It is a new edition of Make Mine Mayday, and Ron Friends is already here saying, let's get this party started. So, hello, Ron.
I mean, it's definitely, the story is definitely a party.
It is it's wild. I think we described it as wild.
I described it earlier as juicy.
Yes.
You know, using that Gen Z terminology, also aging myself by saying that.
I didn't know that was a thing. So let me go get my tennis balls for my my walker.
Every time Gen Z starts throwing phrases at me and I don't know them, I feel so old. I just turned 35, so I'm no longer in the demographic of advertising now. So I have aged out of it because it's 18 to 34. So,
I feel like most of it comes from TikTok, and that's almost outside of advertisers at this point, which is pretty punk of them, honestly.
Truth.
Yeah.
I mean, for now, if they allow TikTok in a year from now, we'll see. We'll see.
This is fair. But let's go ahead and get started.
Yes.
Obviously, on our stuff like housekeeping. Sorry for the dates changing, guys. It in fact almost changed again today. But 2022 had to kind of kick our butts one last time. Me with some family things, and Zach was stranded.
Yeah, I got Southwested.
Yeah. So
and the ironic thing is that I got Southwested, and then today the FAA's computer system went down.
I'm like, yeah.
When we're recording
update your technology. That's really the
where's all our tax dollars going? I just need to know. That's
they're funding Congress pockets.
That's true.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, but we did need some time to get things right. So here we are. We made it. So hopefully we can give you guys a really good episode today. Obviously there's been no real Mayday news other than promos. I mean, I could talk about the end of that Unlimited story, but I don't want to, and I've already made a dig somewhere in these notes. So I think that's really all that needs to be said.
There will be places where that her complete thoughts are published, and we will obviously be talking about that later.
Well, at some point, I will publish my complete thoughts with references to the issues that I have. I don't want to come at it meanly. I don't want anyone to feel that I am, basically, I don't want anybody to feel like I'm being unjust. And so I'm doing everything I can to be as partial and as fair as possible when I in my huge rant that has turned into an essay,
a dissertation / thesis.
Yeah.
Oh boy. We are almost, next month is the 25th anniversary.
Well, of the covered date. Technically,
yes,
it was on shelf in December.
Yes.
So The cover date for What If 105 will be February of this year, and it'll be the 25th anniversary, which means August. I got to double check because I have it in the notes, but basically this summer will be 25 years of Spider-Girl.
And we got some stuff cooking. That's all I'll say.
We have
We'll
stuff
talk about-
cooking. You know,
we'll
but
talk-
at least like too this summer we get a Baby May in a movie, which
We
is
do
kind
get
of fun. Not,
Yes.
you know, it's not our May, but Baby May
It's-
is still fun.
Baby, yeah. I mean, we got little Benji here, so little baby May, I'm all for. So, but yeah, this is going to be an interesting episode because there's a little bit of history that we'll talk about before we get into the meat of the episode. The phrase "brand new May" is a bit of a tongue-in-cheek bit.
I mean, no, it's totally not. It's totally its own thing. I don't know what you're talking about. Not at all.
So it is a bit of a play on words because at the time, the branding on the Amazing Spider-Man was Brand New Day. And Brand New Day had premiered in cover date January 2008. It was a highly divisive time for Marvel's publishing history for a lot of people. Obviously, One More Day had just occurred where you had Peter and Mary Jane's marriage being annulled via Devil or Devil-like figure. And suddenly Spider-Girl was the only place where you could find a married Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson. And it's the only place that it existed. So has a bit of a tongue-in-cheek with the powers that be and chose to name this arc Brand New May. This caused the message board at the time to recoil at the mere concept, as rumblings were kind of there were some worries about with everything going on that there might be a cancellation.
I mean, this was also the discussion. This is the start of the rumors for Disney too.
Yes. The whole Disney acquisition is going to be happening a little bit later on.
Later on, but this is when those first rumblings started. I think it was because of Iron Man, the movie, if I'm not mistaken, which was somewhere around this time, I believe.
May. Yeah, actually, it came out during the first issue because the on sale date was May 14th, and it just came out.
So there you go, a little connection there. Also, I just wanted to mention as you brought that up, and like we've talked about it prior when it actually came out, but during that last big Mephisto like story in ASM, last year? The story,
yeah,
so
either
it's before the untimely assassination of Ben attempt 20. So but basically the we had where the whole thing, what scared Mephisto into annulling the marriage to begin with, we find out now in the 616 is the threat of Mayday Parker. So, or at least the assumed threat of Mayday Parker.
Yes.
So that kind of a full circle moment there.
Now, Ron in the comments does clarify. He says the editor at the time insisted that they use it, and they left it up to us to decide what it would be. So, was that Molly or was that
Molly was leaving?
Yeah, no, Molly
we're
was
going to
leaving.
talk about that as well. That
so just
that Molly left during the story.
Yeah, so Ron can kind of clarify with us if he's talking about Steve Wacker, which that was the chief editor, of course, of the Spider books at the time. So, with that kind of out of the way, a little bit, we'll get into the main crux of the episode. Hello to Jessica, one of our patron subscribers.
Hi,
and Vakeman also said there was also the newspaper strip, which is true. The newspaper strip.
There was the newspaper strip.
Yeah. So, Amazing Spider-Girl number 20. And if you're watching us live on YouTube, I am holding up the individual issue in my hands. Cover date is July 2008. The on-sale date was May 14th of 2008. Cover price was $2.99. Its title is A Brand New May. Our issue opens with a splash page of Peter teaching Mayday how to make the web fluid. Mayday laments the fact that they don't have organic webbing because Peter comments that May must follow his formula exactly. And Peter kind of dismisses the idea of organic webbing as discussing. This is kind of a minor reference to the fact that at that point in the 616 previously, Peter had organic web shooters, but they had been converted back to mechanical webs with the Brand New Day era. So Peter and May discuss Peter's schedule, and May is excited to sleep in. And May also asks Peter if Peter's shared the fact that Benji has spider powers with her mom, but he hasn't done it yet. Thanks to all the problems with recent events, he's kind of keeping it on the down low, and he's trying to figure out the right time to bring it up to her. Later that morning, May is trying to feed Benji while we get a update on Benji's health. It's with the fact that he's healing at a remarkable rate, per Dr. Kaplan, and that MJ asks Peter to thank Normie for his help in getting Dr. Kaplan to help them out with the little guy and all his hearing-related problems. May mentions that she's thinking of going to do the cheers, like join the cheer squad, and this, of course, gives May and Peter a bit of a shock. Meanwhile, later at school, Davida is not pleased with this potential development, as May is doing this to be closer to Jean. And of course, we know that Davida does not like Jean. Courtney tries to defend Jean during this exchange, but she literally can't come up with anything positive, which should, in Davida's case, the case is now closed. May dismisses this, saying, and as Courtney and May walk together, May asks about if she's adjusted to the fact that Moose is returned back to campus. As Davida walks off during this point, she's then hit up by a group of students wanting to create a new social club supported by the Humanity First Political Action Group. In MJ's office, Mr. Slattery is talking to MJ to be on the lookout for students who are talking about the Humanity First movement, since at other campuses, there's been attacks where they have been literally kidnapped, had their heads shaved, and branded with an M on their foreheads. And they're shaming students, especially if they are out as mutants or if they're considered mutants, they're suspected mutants. MJ has concerns because obviously this kind of defeats part of the whole student privilege that she's supposed to have with her autonomy. But Slattery's so concerned, as is the district, that this is starting to spread as a hate group, that just to keep him informed. MJ Slattery knows that this is an impossible position to put her in, but with Sandra being at school, they can't be too careful. Mayday is obviously on MJ's mind as well, but Slattery doesn't know that. Our not so favorite ex-boyfriend Brad Miller, the Zach Morris's trash of the 982 universe.
Okay. Was he? I don't think he was an official boyfriend. They were talking. They flirted. They both liked each other, but they didn't really date.
I think they went on a couple of dates, but that doesn't.
No, not a couple. No, they talked to each other. They were talking to each other.
Oh, that's right. Because Mayday always had to bail on the dates. That's right. They tried dating, but they never did. And
no. She went on one date with JJ. Only talked to Brad.
That's true.
Then it's I think she went on the most dates maybe with Chris before Jean.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So our not so favorite potential love interest, Brad Miller, the Zach Morris's trash of the 982 universe.
Yes, agreed. He does a good thing here. Okay, I mean, I'll give him that. He's not redeemed.
He's not redeemed.
Not like Davida here. Davida redeems herself here.
Yeah. For those that don't know, I think it's is it College Humor that does Zach Morris's trash videos?
Yes. Oh, and then they helped write the reboot that's on Peacock.
I never watched it, so I don't know.
Bad, but like Glee bad.
So it's like it's good popcorn humor. Don't take it too serious.
And look, if you really want to see Zach Morris become absolute trash, like we always knew he would be, then yes, please watch. He becomes like the worst mayor or worst governor of California.
That's a feat. Anyway,
Still married to Kelly though, so
yeah, he did.
he still got to keep Tiffany Amber Thiessen,
which means he still wins, even when he
somehow.
loses.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he's talking to Moose and telling him about Sandra. Speaking of, she tries to befriend May about her situation, like tries to ask for like, some advice and like maybe they could do lunch. But May kind of brushes her off, stating that she has a lunch date with Gene. So Moose then.
This is also the second time this happened.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. This is the second time this has happened. This happened in our we mentioned this last episode that this was that was the first time it happened. This is the second time. Moose asks her then of her opinion on Spider-Girl, if she's a threat or menace. And we then cut to May showing up to lunch with Gene when he's just assuming that May is just going to go along with being a cheerleader. Like she's floated the idea and he's just like, oh yeah, you're going to be a cheerleader. Meathead. Anyway.
Hold on. He wants, let's be fair here. It's not like he's just going along with the idea. No. He is almost practically demanding it because he just assumes that she's going to do it for him, that her life revolves around him.
Yes.
We need to make, I know I make that clear in my stuff, but like just have to like, it's really hammered in how self-absorbed Gene is in these issues.
Yes. If I said Sandra, I meant Sarah.
Yeah. Sandra's good. Sandra's healthy. Sarah needs a friend and keeps getting brushed off.
Not good. They're Mayday are anyway. So elsewhere, Peter has called up Normie to thank him for his help, but Normie subsequently wants to discuss something with Peter in person and to keep it quiet. And don't mention that they've made a phone call because it's Normie and he always has to do something sort of clandestine, it seems. We then cut to the Friends of Humanity. I mean, Humanity First, where they're meeting at a church? Question mark? Dr. Eve Manning heads the group and they are lamenting having to meet in secret, that they've been cast out by the rest of humanity because they're bigots. The student from earlier that was talking to Vita remarks about Sarah and she wants to learn more. Meanwhile, back at Midtown, MJ formally asks May about having to watch Benji after school, since Peter's is off investigating something for Phil, and since MJ's stuck at school, if Mayday can watch the little guy and trade off with Peter. She then asks at the very end about Humanity First. This gives May something to think about on her way home, and as she's thinking about this, when she feels the person stalking her behind her, Mayday kind of goes off to investigate. Just as the person that is stalking Mayday is snatched up by Humanity First thugs. May then saves the person who she learns and we learn is actually Sarah. May then jumps to confront the thugs while two mutants come to fight them. Impact and Pirouette. I don't know how to say the
Pirouette.
All right. Oh yeah, it's like the ballerina thing, right?
Yeah, you could have probably asked her daughter.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Anyway,
the thugs have little chance, and May is reluctantly having to save the thugs and comments that she's having to reluctantly save these people. While this is happening, Aranya is getting a status report on May. Pirouette remarks that May is human and not mutant, so she's saving them because Sandra was confused as to why Mayday is saving them, even though Mayday is saying, I don't want to save these punks. Like, why are you making me save these punks?
Also, can you say that again? That, Mayday isn't a mutant, because I had somebody on Instagram tell me I was wrong.
Mayday is not a mutant. She does not possess the X gene. If you're a mutant, you possess the X gene. Mayday does not possess the X gene. She's just genetically altered.
I'll be honest, I think the issue comes from how a lot of the later half of Renew Your Vows is written.
Yes.
But even then, Annie is also not a mutant.
Yeah, neither. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes, I agree with that. But yes, she then takes her home. Pirouette takes Sarah home, while the last thug May saved tries to recruit her into the Humanity First movement, and she subsequently webs his mouth shut, as she should. May pulls a cane. I said and cane, but I meant a cane because she's watching in the shadows as Sarah is dropped off at home. Watching in the shadows and cane, that's a reference to Clone Saga Chronicles, which is pertinent to this particular episode. May then races across town to relieve her dad on binging duty because she's 30 minutes late. Peter gets to Osborne Chemical. Let me repeat that. Gets to Osborne Chemical, not Oscorp, to meet with Normie. Josh will be proud of me pointing that out. That's one of his pet.
Did you read it on the... So, fun fact of things when I reread these issues, they have a new digital stamp that says 2020, even though they've clearly been on digital a lot longer. And it is very, very bold in the like making sure you understand it is Osborne Chemical, because it is so like, it is so differently, like just a complete different font and very like, you know, it was transposed on top of the artwork.
Really?
Like for a second time. It looks...
We will post this on...
It looks awkward. It looks a little awkward, and there's no reason for it. They just are like, it stands out. You know it's Osborne Chemical.
Yeah.
Even though there was a time where we saw Osborne Tower, but I think that that's like maybe like an apartment building or something, because clearly that's where like Normie lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm wondering if maybe that was like a change, but I haven't looked through the originals and the digitals, so
I can't remember if that was the townhouse apartment that Harry and Liz and Peter and MJ all lived in the early 90s.
Oh,
late
yeah.
80s, early 90s.
I don't know.
So that may be.
Maybe.
Who knows?
I remember.
We'll have to look it up.
I know in one, I think the episode before last, I do remember seeing Osborne Towers, and now of course in all of this stuff, all you see anytime it shows like the stuff is Osborne Chemical, and it's very, it was very much added after. It's very digital looking.
Very digital looking.
Yeah.
Pinkman says, now this goon deserved to have his mouth web shut because we referenced the fact that I think it was like episode before last.
Oh, no, it was a few episodes prior. It was the fact that, and yes, Pinkman, it does say Osborne Chemical Corp.
Yes, but what she's saying is the font that they digitally imposed over it is like just, very bright.
I think it's the same. I think it's the same font. I just think that it got digitally. I'll show it to you later. It literally just, it's very, you can tell there was
we'll post it on the social media.
Yeah.
At Spidey Dude Radio on Twitter, at Make Mine Mayday on Twitter, and we'll tag we'll tag each other and we'll post on Instagram as well.
Yeah. Tag Marvel, they'll never answer us. Yeah.
I know, we yell in the ether with Marvel. But Normie then tells Peter that while he was on his honeymoon, that he was also doing business. I mean, if you're going to spend months in Europe, you might as well write it off for tax purposes. But
well, yes, you should write it off for tax purposes. But I have a rant after this. I mean, it's a continuous part, and you know this. But God, I have so many questions, Normie.
we will talk about that momentarily. So he's while he's on his honeymoon, he's going through his grandpa's old haunts, selling properties and the assets, looking for hidden rooms.
It's his honeymoon. It's his honeymoon. Sorry, it's his honeymoon.
Read the room, Normie. It's not like you're not poor. I mean, I understand you selling the properties and be like, oh, I'll just kill two birds with one stone. We'll write this off for tax purposes. And like Brenda's probably just sitting there, on the Riviera getting her suntan going, I would like to spend time with my husband, but, he's busy off going to hidden rooms. Anyway.
Well, we'll talk about it after. I'm going to try and let you finish. We're so close.
Right. We are so close to the end of this issue. But one truly terrified him and caused grave concern. It was a stasis tube with a 16-year-old girl who looks just like Peter's May. Normie remarks that it might be the real one and that he raised a clone. To be continued.
Proud of yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
Come on, that one deserved it, okay?
Fine. But yeah, lots going on in this issue. We get our first inklings of Brad still being very anti-mutant here. Humanity first. Then of course Normie's back with this huge news. And again, as I said earlier, I have a few questions since it seems like he's hiding this from everyone. And I just keep calling the body double April. I try my best not to, but it's April. We all know it's April. Look at the first appearance of April, everyone. But like, how did he get April? And of course, we find out later how he gets April across in between countries. But he smuggled a human being from one country to another and hid it from his wife, his new wife, that he was so in love with. Hold on. That he was so in love with that he just had to marry her while she was in the hospital bed. So he decides to hide this from his wife. And this is how he spent his honeymoon instead of, actually being, again, with his wife. And also, as I wrote in this, because I was just going off, because it's my chance to go off on this situation, finally. So this was in 2008, which is kind of still the heyday of the Perez Hilton celebrity blogs, where people were using paparazzi photos and like making up crazy things. And maybe it's just because I am currently listening to Prince Harry's memoir, but this got me thinking, because it's like, I can just see this like super bonkers celebrity article about this, about going, do you know that Norman Osborn, whatever, like other thing, but like Normie Osborn smuggled a human being, human trafficked. And somebody going, no, that can't be true. And it's like, but it is.
Not only human trafficked a human being, but a 16-year-old girl who suspiciously looks like his friend May.
Suspiciously looks like his friend May, who, as we know, just to add more awkwardness to the situation, he's at least admitted to himself he did have feelings for her. And he knew that she had a crush on him. And I just, like, again, this is all sorts of shady, which is very in line with Osborn. And of course, Normie has good intentions, but has to come about it just the shadiest way possible. And also, and I also just have to bring up that I vividly remember reading this for the first time. Like, I can remember, it's like 2008, it's like the end of junior year of high school. I am sitting here, I am reading this book. I've got like the Warped Tour 2008 compilation, whatever, going. Because I remember, because I was excited to go to Warped Tour that year. Fuse TV, when they were still playing like music videos, because MTV had stopped by then. This was Laguna Beach time, y'all.
Oh yeah, Laguna Beach.
Laguna Beach.
Lauren Conrad and what's her name? I can't remember. The one that married the quarterback, Jay Cutler.
It was Kirsten. It was Kirsten. I can't remember her.
Calamari.
Name. Yeah, Calamari. Yeah. I don't think it's Calamari, but we're calling her Calamari. But
it sounded like Calamari to me.
But the whole thing though is, I literally remember reading this going, oh God, we've jumped the shark. There are clones. This is definitely the end game now. We can't come back from this.
You thought Doctor Strange lied from Infinity War. We're at the end game now.
I'm just like, it's like, I remember, like, I can remember being in the bedroom. I remember the like beaded curtains in that bedroom. Like,
that's my old coworker.
I like now, like, it's a fine because things worked out, but I can remember the dread setting in, going, oh God, oh no, not clones. Don't put my girl through clones.
Meanwhile, I was stoked for this because I am the Clone Saga apologist. At this point, we had not launched Clone Saga Chronicles yet, but I was really excited. I too remembered this, and I was kind of stunned. Though you raise a serious point about Normie, this is Normie, and if there were people who were loyal to Norman to a fault, maybe I would expect like a Donald Mencken who would greatly help the grandson of Norman with this.
Well, we find out what happened, which is Normie gets played.
Yeah.
So then we also have to question Normie's naivety, but he is a 20-year-old boy that lived with a spoon in his mouth. So like I talk about it later where I'm just like, did he ever actually go to college, or was he just straight up nepotism baby into CEO?
Yes. The answer to that question is yes.
So again, I think sometimes we expect too much from Normie.
Yeah.
Like he makes cool things, like he's very techie. You know, he figured out how to like make a cell phone into, you know, a web shooter. Like that's pretty techie. Like he's really good. Could go to college and actually make something of himself, but nepotism. And that's fine too.
Now he could have had private tutors and graduated early. Maybe.
But we don't know. And so all I could think of is just you have a high school graduate with too much money on his hands. Again, marries in a whirlwind romance. Somehow spends most of the honeymoon searching his grandfather's secret lairs over spending time with his wife, who he keeps secrets from. And this is an ongoing situation. I have a lot of questions. Like, also, I mean, he is a Disney adult, so like that he does have that going for him.
We've established this in previous episodes. If you have not listened to those previous episodes, if this is your first episode, go check out the previous ones. I also want to mention this cover because this cover is definitely a throwback to Archie. It's a very Archie-like cover.
Well, it's also a throwback. So I don't know, like, so a lot of times when you bring up that Spider-Girl is the longest running solo female-led title for Marvel, people like to bring up Hellcat and Patty Walker, which Patty Walker had what you would now call an Archie-like comic in the beginning before she was a superhero.
Right.
And that to me is what I thought that was like maybe a little bit in reference to, is kind of that old classic Marvel Atlas
it's
romance kind of
it's
thing. Not
it's definitely one of those that are supposed to like invoke a old school response. I know we kind of saw that a little bit with the covers of One More Day, but this was kind of the exception to the rule and not the rule.
Yeah.
Definitely one of those. I mean, it has like amazing fantasy on it, tales of suspense, teenage romance. This one has it all, you know. So it's definitely like an eye catcher of a cover. And if there's any insights that can be provided by our friend Ron, feel free to let us know in the comments. But yeah, no, I just had to mention that so that way, if you're following along, this one's definitely a cover that definitely stands out, and apparently it is worth a little more because it is April's first appearance. So if you're trying to find this in the floppies, might be a little more expensive than the regular issue.
Possibly. It depends, because April really hasn't like jumped from 982. There's no Venom verse with April.
Not yet.
Not yet. But I also am like, how would April work in Venom verse?
Yeah.
I think she'd scare Eddie.
This is true.
I think she'd
This is true. She would terrify Eddie. and Eddie's son. Like I think she would terrify them both.
Yeah.
Because she's like kind of carnagey sometimes.
I mean, in a good way. I just think that like there's Dylan and Eddie are lovable idiots at this point. Oh wow, $50. She's worth $50. Cool.
Nice.
Anyway,
all right. Moving on to our that kind of just final note is shout out in the letters page to Matt, Tyler, Bob on the letters page. So that
Oh,
leads us
I did
to
not do that to everybody, just to Emma from England, because me and her, same brain waves, and I'll discuss that when we get to that. But I did see a lot. I saw Ryan, I saw Matt twice,
yeah. I'll shout out on
Aaron,
the
or sorry, Frogoat. Sorry,
Yeah.
Frogoat. I mean, your name is in there, but
yeah. So the secret identity is well
sorry,
been exposed
sorry,
by this point.
sorry. Anyway, we'll go into this. Yes, which I personally love this cover to death.
I do like this cover a lot.
And Who's That Girl reminds me of that Eve song from 1999.
Who's that girl? I was thinking that too earlier when I was reading
Yeah.
it.
Anyway, glad to know that we're in the same silly mindset. But
I did use the floating head for like the teaser bit.
There's a lot of floating heads going on in this.
Oh well, the floating head from this issue.
Yes.
I use that to eagerly anticipate.
Yeah, I will say too, if y'all read this, because we don't talk enough when we're doing our breakdowns about how many floating heads of guilt there are in the story, which, I mean, some of it, yeah, no, May needs to feel a little bit bad about. Otherwise, I defend her, but there's some of it I kind of agree. She should feel a little guilty. But going into ASG 21, the cover date is August 2008, on sale June 11th, 2008, and the title is Who's That Girl? We start our issue with Gene being very self-absorbed and getting on to May for skipping his football practice to babysit due to her father needing to run an errand before work. Apparently, that was humiliating to him, having a girlfriend who helps her family. Her commitment to him is apparently more important than a baby being taken care of. Just, again, so we're clear on where Gene stands. May thinks to herself about how much she wants to tell Jean about everything and all her responsibilities, but she isn't sure about this relationship yet because something deep down inside tells her that this is stupid. Yet, like I said, yet she wants to feel comfortable first before telling him, and she does want to tell him. Then her phone goes off, and Jean gets upset about that and tells her to hang up immediately. But it's her Uncle Phil. And as I wrote here, we're just going to ignore Jean being a pompous butt. So Phil is calling May because Peter didn't come in early like he had promised Phil he would, and isn't answering his cell phone. Since May saw him last, Phil figured she might know where he is, but May is surprised by this. All she knew is that he had to make a stop on the way to the station. Meanwhile, Peter is with Normie. This is the worst version of the Science Brothers you could ever want to see. You do not want these two in a lab, and you will find out really quickly why. They should not be together.
Oh boy.
It's like, we finally get them like like Normie's calling him Uncle Pete. They seem to be like a team. We don't want them together. This is the first time that you're seeing why they cannot be together. We'll talk more about it in Spectacular as well, because both of their brains should not be churning and plotting things together. It's no. But Peter is with Normie, staring at this Mayday body double in a test tube. Normie explaining that he found her in one of his grandfather's laboratories, which, again, Normie, most honeymoons aren't normally checking out hidden laboratories for nefarious things by herself, but sure, I bet that was a great trip for Brenda. Good job. But Normie found some journals that state this stasis chamber currently is harboring the stasis chamber that is currently harboring the May double, aka April, is supposed to wake her up on her 21st birthday, and she is the real May Parker, to which Peter starts getting over his shock and leaning into his anger. This is a lie. It has to be a lie. He grabs Normie by the throat, lifting him up off the ground, choking Normie, asking what game is he playing here? What is he trying to pull to do this? Peter is not about to let Normie's family madness destroy his family or hurt his daughter. Peter demands his godson, which I assume Normie still is in this world, because he does keep calling him Uncle Pete. I'm just going to roll with it.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, so demands for his godson to tell him the truth. And now, Normie manages to get out that he really doesn't know the truth here. or what his grandfather really had planned. Like, he doesn't know anything. But he would never hurt May. He loves her too, and he knows that Peter knows that he loves her. So Peter lets Normie go, apologizing for the outburst. But, all is forgiven when you know the Parker Osborne history. So Normie advises that his grandfather's notes called this Project Changeling, and he had to Google the term, which, as I stated earlier, reminded me, did Normie ever actually go to college? Because you kind of learn this in most English class, but it's okay. It's okay. He had to Google it. Anyway, according to folklore, a changeling is a human child that has been replaced by an exact duplicate that can be a fairy, a troll, or a goblin. Unfortunately, nothing in the notes really say anything about which May is a duplicate or which is the real May. Normie says he needs to read more of his grandfather's journals to see if he can find the answer, something Peter says he wouldn't trust anyway. Which, fair. Normie asks if Peter knows any tests he can run to tell if the May in the stasis chamber is the real May or not. He almost says the word clone, which Peter shuts him up really fast. This is just a trauma. We're not going to go down. It's a trauma, Zach. This is
Listen,
traumatic.
I'm not even gonna. Yeah,
you get excited about the misery of Peter Parker.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I get excited from Peter's misery in this particular case. In most other cases, I'm not excited, but because it's clone related, I'm kind of giddy.
How dare you?
How dare I? I know.
How dare you? So as Normie thinks on it, he might know someone who can help them find the truth. We cut to May walking into Cafe Indigo, Simone talking to Jean, which infuriates May, but she's not going to let Simone see her sweat. As they exchange pleasantries, Simone reminds May of all the times she did quit things, which, while the reasonings are good here, I'm not going to deny how this looks to her, because I'm not going to deny how that looks to her classmates. It does look like May quits a lot when things get tough. But we know our hero, that she does. That is the opposite of who she is. But this gets May really riled up, and she basically agrees to trying out for cheerleading and realizes almost immediately she does not want to be a cheerleader. So great. Wonderful. May starts to wonder how she keeps getting manipulated into stuff like this whenever Jean is around. And while she does admit to some blame here, she did promise him she'd make things work this go around and do whatever it took to make him happy. Was getting back together with Jean a mistake? She's finally seen the light, people. This is something still weighing on her mind, even after going to bed. And as she leaves for school, we see Peter looking out the window, watching her. Totally normal. Totally cool. Yeah. Anyway, at school, Davida talks to May about what she's dug up on Humanity First, and Davida isn't about to let a hate group happen on her watch, not on student council. This reminds May to check in with Sarah, and of course, Sarah starts giving her a bit of cold shoulder after finally finding friends who are like her. The friendship she had hoped she could find in May. And May feels like she failed Sarah, which, from blowing her off multiple times, she kind of did. At Rikers Island, Normie makes a visit to see Elan. Something that, okay, he tells Elan that the last time he saw her, she tried to kill him, and I recall she put venom on him the last time they met. So unless I'm forgetting stuff, because this was kind of to cause chaos and to kind of like wake his senses up, so to speak, I don't really see how she tried to kill him. Am I forgetting something? So, like, is there another story here? And, either I forgot it or maybe it never got told. I feel like we're missing something here. Untold Tales of Spider-Girl, perhaps. Anyway, like I said, it's something that struck me. And when Norman asks Elan about Project Changeling, her eyes seem to twitch and she smiles, but tells Normie she knows absolutely nothing. So, she knows something. Back at Midtown High, Davida tells the hate group boys to, also tells them no and tells them off. And she goes pretty hard on it. And Brad, their bro, comes by asking what happened. They tell her that he needs to help her get her priorities straight before she gets hurt. Uh-oh, totally not a threat there. So some cheerleaders tell May that they look forward to seeing her out in the field later because Gene is telling legitimately everyone who will listen to him how May is going to be a cheerleader, which sends May into thinking, how does she get out of this without embarrassing Gene when Wes comes by asking about little Benji and reminding May that friends watch out for friends, which gets May thinking about a solution for her other issues she's dealing with. And her gratefulness about this causes May to kiss Wes on the cheek as she runs off, which is very sweet and nice. And girl, forget about Gene. So when in doubt or just not wanting to deal with things about one problem, May always focuses on another, especially if that other problem means wearing her spandex. And again, like I wrote in here, this is definitely May's motto. When in doubt, focus on the other thing in spandex. So May admits she's been a lousy friend to Sarah, and she dons her red and blues and zeroes in on finding her, watching out for Sarah. And as she finds she isn't the only person trailing Sarah, Moose is also spying on her, probably to recruit her in his hating Spider-Girl crusade, something that shouldn't be too hard when Sarah thinks Spider-Girl is on those Humanity First guys' side, when all May was trying to do was prevent anybody from getting killed. May's spider sense starts going haywire. It's like her brain is on fire. Sarah went into a building where Impact and Pirouette are, along with another mutant, Headcase. Headcase is scanning the area. We find out that Sarah is followed by 2 spies. The girls give Sarah her own costume, a gift from their leader, as they make way to keep Headcase safe and give Sarah a chance to prove herself, since she said she wanted to help defend her new friends from these spies. As May head starts to feel normal, her spider sense goes off again for a blast, which she warns Moose of a little too late, something that she says feels familiar to her. And we're going to bring this up again because this is stuff I've brought up before, how she can kind of differentiate between things she's felt before and not. Like, she kind of eventually knows who the spider sense is and who isn't based on their threat, I guess the threat feeling in her spider sense. So again, the blast came from Sarah, or should I say Nucleus, as she tries to call herself, and it's the only time we hear it. Spider-Girl tries to just talk to Sarah, tell her that she's not Sarah's enemy here. She hates the Humanity First bigots as much as Sarah does, but she couldn't stand by while they got slaughtered. She reminds Sarah that Moose is hurt and needs to be checked out, but Sarah reminds her Moose hates Spider-Girl's guts, and she bets the feeling is mutual, so she makes sure Spider-Girl can't get near Moose by blasting her away. Back in Normie's lair, Peter decides he needs to see if he can get a sample of the liquid in the stasis chamber to test when it reacts, and when he does, it reacts to the air and explodes in Peter's face. Again, Normie and Peter should not be in the lab together. Example, like, number 2 at this point. Moose wakes up during Sarah and Spider-Girl's fight, obviously okay enough to tell Sarah to splatter the spider. May starts thinking about what she can do to stop this madness without hurting Sarah. She uses her spider sense to navigate through Sarah's blast and grabs Sarah by her legs, swinging her high into the air and letting her go, having Sarah fly, literally flipping through the air, only to catch her in a web to slow her fall. This makes Sarah sick and dizzy. Moose tends to Sarah and yells out to Spider-Girl, calling her a bully, because now when Sarah pukes, she's only going to be able to think of Spider-Girl. And Spider-Girl walks away, beating herself up for letting her friends down, wondering what kind of monster is she? The end, for now.
So yeah, this is definitely an intense issue. I really like how Sarah is being kind of jostled between all this by these multiple sides, and how easy it is to manipulate a person that is at a very vulnerable state. And I think that this does a really good job of like showing the consequences sometimes of that. And we'll see that throughout the rest of these issues. Um, but I, like I say, I really, really enjoyed it. I love the bits with Peter because
Oh no, as much as I joke, I really do enjoy Normie and Peter being together. It's just trouble follows. Like there is a cloud of trouble.
yeah, no, and look, Normie does not know
Oh yeah.
the history with Norman and clones, obviously.
Well,
So this,
I don't think any of them do. That's the point.
yeah,
The only people living at this point that I think understands the clone situation is Kane and Peter
and MJ.
and MJ, and
But-
then maybe to an extent Riley, but I think even then I don't think Riley fully understands.
Riley only understands what Kane told him.
Exactly.
So we know some of what he told him, but we don't know the full extent of what he told him. So there is some ambiguity there. But you're right. I mean, so Peter's responses here and the way he's acting, it may seem out of character for some, but it actually is in character considering all the weight that happened with the trauma, like you said earlier. It's a trauma
I mean,
response.
it is. I mean, and that's the whole thing is like I make jokes. I made a joke on my Instagram story, promoting this, like,
Yeah.
because we'll see in another issue where Peter, instead of going to therapy, just talks to a baby about his trauma, and yeah, no, like this is all a trauma response. Like this is Peter's worst nightmare coming to light, and of course Normie doesn't know. Normie has no clue. What happens is Normie walked into a lair, which we will find later was kind of set up for him to walk into.
Yeah.
But he walks into it, and all he does is he sees the face of essentially his best friend, somebody that he really cares for. And he's not going to let that body just stay there and rot. That's not something he's going to do. He wants to figure out what's going on. So yeah, he starts pouring through these carefully curated and placed journals, which we'll find out later, all for this grand plan.
Yeah.
But the issue at hand is like Normie is a pawn, a very unwilling pawn here that is being played because of his emotions for May and his emotions for the Parker family, essentially. And it's like it's really weird because it's like we see the chess pieces now, especially as we know the full story. But like when you first read this stuff here, like it really just feels like you feel for Peter. This is a trauma. This is traumatic.
Yeah.
And then, on the other sides of the story, Sarah, you can kind of see, even though we're using Sarah, who to me, is it weird that I feel like she's giving off like Rogue vibes a bit in this?
No.
And I'm not saying that like it's just because you know how when we first see Rogue in the comics, she was radicalized essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what the Brotherhood is trying to do with Sarah.
Yeah,
they are trying to radicalize her, just like the boys in Humanity First get radicalized by Dr. Manning. Dr. Manning.
Dr. Manning, yeah.
So there's this whole, it's like the similar situation, but like we're seeing it, of course, through Sarah's eyes and seeing her turmoil and how scared she is.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, like, she doesn't know who to trust. All she wanted was a friend that understood her, and the person she thought she could understand, May, blew her off to hang out with a literal, like, I'm just gonna say it. I'm sorry. We're like PG-13. He's a douche nozzle, like complete nozzle. Tool bag. I can't, big bag of wind. Like Jean is the worst person, and the only person that could understand Sarah blew her off to hang out with him. Like, you kind of understand Sarah here. She needed she needs guidance, which is what eventually May is trying to do. But
Yeah.
so too, no one's taking Sarah's decision or choice into account either there. And we'll get into that as well, because she starts
Yeah.
talking about that. She's like, everyone's just trying to use me for something. Yeah.
I do love some of the artistic choices that are made throughout this arc, like the whole
Yes.
the beaker exploding straight up is homage to ASM 39
Hmm.
with Norman.
Yeah.
Except it,
Which, I mean, speaking of foreshadowing there.
there is a lot of foreshadowing
I
in
know.
this entire arc.
Oh,
and
I
it's
know.
like, even, and I didn't mention it last issue, but like at the opening splash page, you have like the distorted spider logo with the beaker.
Yep.
You know, like that is like a bit of foreshadowing. So it's like just like fun little nuggets that are thrown in when you read this and when you know what comes next. Like, I read this digitally first before I went back and read the floppies. And I just did a whole like binge where I read basically from this point all the way to the end of the series, and just the level of foreshadowing is really, really good. This is where long-term storytelling really works.
Oh yeah.
And the whole, I just really like and enjoy the bits that we see here. Davita's vindication, like, this is where we vindicate Davita. This is where she's like proving herself to be an ally as opposed to a bigot, and she's kind of fully realized the error of her ways, and she proves that she was, that she's not that way. Just the level of May feels like a failure throughout this issue. 3 different times she talks about how she failed and she failed and she failed.
But think about how many times she says that throughout the entire series.
That's true.
Like, that's the thing. Like, ultimately, the thing that holds May back is her self-doubt.
Yes.
And she does make mistakes, and she beats herself up so bad with her mistakes. And a lot of that does come from, like, it's kind of, Peter doesn't talk about his past. He doesn't talk about his stories to her.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of where that could help her a lot at this point in her career. But that would also require him to not quite be honest, maybe a little bit be honest with himself. But, all of that stuff is an old wound. And he doesn't want to really poke at it.
Yeah, no, he just wants to bury it and move on and not talk about it. Also, I'll say this: if you're reading the individual issues, this was very much the month of the Hulk.
Oh,
because the Incredible Hulk movie was coming out, and like every other advertisement was some sort of Hulk related advertisement. So tell me you're in the MCU without telling me you're in the MCU.
Well, technically, for the longest time, that didn't count either. Even though
it
clearly is. Yeah, even though it clearly is in that universe, it didn't count because it wasn't done by the same studio.
Yep, that's true. That is true. So, that's all my thoughts. You got any more to add on this one before we jump to
like I wrote on here, it's like I'll riff whatever you bring up. Because I think for the most part, what I've said, what I need to say has been said.
Mm-hmm.
Because I today's breakdowns are definitely they're not my popcorn, but it's like, because this is kind of a story that, like, I have a lot to say, so I'm saying it as I go along.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. So yeah, I'll just jump into ASG 22. Unlike most of our issues recently, this issue does not open with a splash page.
It does,
but rather get you into the story with May and Push doing some exercises, and they're kind of talking back and forth. May is helping her, and she's called for advice. She's called Push for.
Did we ever start talking about the MySpace?
No, but we can talk about it at the end of this.
Yeah, because this is, I believe, Brand New May is the start of the MySpace pages.
Yeah, or old school Facebook. I always thought it was old school Facebook.
Oh, I thought it was MySpace.
I think it's old school Facebook. Like old,
I
like
mean,
OG
well,
Facebook.
yeah. I mean, it would be OG Facebook because 2008, but like MySpace was still sort of around, and it started looking like that too.
Yeah, it was limping along. It was
Because
MySpace was like on the down decline, and then Facebook was on the upward decline, and yeah, this is definitely
worst thing that happened to MySpace was Justin Timberlake.
yeah.
A lot of things in this world. Anyway,
I mean,
let's move on.
The fact that NSYNC hasn't done a reunion, it's all because of him. The rest of them were willing to get together, but he's just the one lone holdout. Anyway,
Yeah.
not saying I would go to an NSYNC concert reunion tour, but
Look, I'm here for JC. I don't care.
listen, I would go to a. There's a part of me that would go to a Backstreet Boys NSYNC dual tour, like, and they would do that now.
No, I'm mad at Backstreet Boys.
What's wrong with the Backstreet Boys?
Nick Carter.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Never mind. Moving on. So, yes, the face group starts with the next issue. Yeah, because it's not in this issue; it's in the next one. I think. Double checking. Yes, the face group, and I think that's also signifying the change between Molly.
No, because I have this is the so this breakdown is the last issue showing Molly Laser as editor.
Okay, that's right. All right. I'm sorry. That's the next one. I'm sorry. It's 2 issues from now. So,
No,
okay. Is it next issue?
No, the next one, my breakdown is the first one with Tom B.
Okay. All right. Sorry. So, all right. ASG 22's cover date September 2008, July 10th, 2008. The title of the issue is Deadly Crossroads. As I mentioned before, it's May and Push doing some exercises. May has called for advice about Sarah, and they're having a bit of fun along the way. Push throws some items at May, and May dodges them and throws them back at her, but pushes them into a chimney. Push tries to push the chimney back to where it's stable to get it back in place, but it's too much of a weight for her, and May kind of has to bail her out because it's just too much for her.
So I felt like this was a throwback to the time that she was running around with Cassie, and fully was expecting Nova to show up.
Normally, Nova would show up and be a jerk because it's Nova in 982. Yeah. Meanwhile, we got Peter awakening from his goblin-induced dream with Normie helping him come to after the events of last issue. Normie and Peter promise to keep this hush-hush while May is heading home to see Jean at Cafe Indigo. Simone continues to drive the wedge between them, and May kind of goes to leave, bumping literally into Wes.
Okay, Jean, hold on. Jean is holding Simone from behind.
That's true. Yeah, he's...
Sorry, I need to make sure this is clear.
Kelly's got some thoughts. So, yes, Simone is gingerly touching his face, and she's got a big old grin. He's got a big old grin because he likes the attention, because he's an attention whore.
Oh wait, am I thinking of another scene?
No, this is the same one.
Well, there's one scene where she's touching his face and she's in front of him, but I thought that was last issue, and then this issue, Jean's holding her from behind. I swear to God. Yeah. Okay. You're talking about that. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was talking
about. Right. Yeah.
Also, Brenda and JJ were talking with each other. Nancy. Godly. Not Brenda. Nancy. I'm getting everybody's name wrong tonight. Boy, howdy. Anyway. May goes through a range of emotions, and it's, she's mad, and why does it always have to be Simone? And then she leaves, and then she bumps into Wes, and Wes is like, oh, what's the big hurry? And Wes tries to calm her down. Jean, of course, being Jean, giant meathead douchebag, comes in swinging, literally, and May catches his punch. As she does, he gets mocked for this, and he kind of storms off in a huff. Everybody's laughing at him, and May's like, what have I done? No, May, you did the right thing. He's being a tool bag. Anyway, meanwhile, we go to Riker's Island, where we learn that it's the staying place of Fury. She's getting
Fury,
her
aka the Goblin Queen.
the Goblin Queen, not to be confused with the Queen Goblin.
No, the only.
Or as Neil calls her, Gobby Mommy. Anyway.
We're not calling him on Gobby Mommy, so that's fine.
I hated that name. I hated that name until like it finally I wore.
No, I hate all of it. But you
I hate all
also
of it
know
too.
what I call Chasm. So
Yes. Yeah. The 35th clone of Ben Reilly. Anyway, so she's getting her one phone call for the week, and it's our old pal
Renee.
Thank you.
It's her. I think it's her dad. It's her guardian.
Yeah, it's her guardian.
If it's her dad or not.
No, it's not her dad. It's not her dad. It's Simone's dad.
Oh, that's right. But he's basically.
He is in charge of like the Order of the Goblin while she's incarcerated.
Yeah,
so that's his role. So he's.
That's right. It's Simone. In fairness, both Alon and Simone look similar.
Yeah, that's true. Like they could be like.
They could be like half sisters and just don't know it, and that just creates more drama later.
That's true. So I still don't know what the bottom shackles are on her thing, because like she has like these big giant pieces of metal on her legs, which looks very uncomfortable.
I mean, they do put. There are some prisoners that do get leg shackles when they feel like they're gonna run.
Maybe it's like got anti-gravity.
I mean, it's Rikers.
It is Rikers. So, we all right. Back. May is off to leave for school. And Peter shows up and is a total jerk to Lux to his freaking kid, saying, I'm not gonna. I let my guard down in a lab accident. I'm not gonna let that happen again. And May is kind of confused, wondering what
really
crawled up.
Weird.
It's really weird. May asks what crawled up his nose. It's some green goop that blew up in his face. Mayday. Sorry. Anyway, so May's kind of lost in thought when she bumps into Jean. Oh. Jean's poor ego is still so fragile that he can't. He's so fragile. He's such a broken little boy that he can't trust May anymore, because she was the one that wanted to make this work, and blah blah blah.
I still love. It was a love tap. Her spider sense didn't go off because of a love tap, Jean.
Yeah, you're lucky that I was only going to give Weston a love tap. I might have broken your hand. Bro, you're just pissed off that a girl that looks dainty, we know she's not dainty, but looks dainty, caught your
I'll be fair here. She doesn't really look dainty at this point. Like,
in
she
his
definitely
eyes, though. You gotta think
maybe, but to me it's like she looks like a gymnast. She looks like she's going to kick your ass.
That's true. But like in his brain, because he's a meathead, like he thinks he's I'd have broke your nose, or I'd have hurt you, I'd have hurt your hand. Bro, you wouldn't have hurt her hand. She'd have broke your freaking hand. Trust me. We've seen Peter do it to your dad in an alternate reality in the Ultimate Universe. Anyway, he's talking about how the broken promises are, and he's like, I don't know if I can trust you anymore, blah, blah, blah. Back at Forest Hills, MJ is cleaning up Peter's face, and he lies to his wife about what actually happened, despite her rightfully pointing out the impossibility of a lab accident causing this to occur due to the fact that he has, I don't know, genetic reflexes and spider sense that would warn him of such a thing that's happening. So, he continues to lie and tells her that, nothing. I would not. I would hate.
In fairness, he did sense it. He just was focused on warning Normie to get away.
That's true. So, we then have the Humanity First dweebs. They're back at it again, and Davida firmly says no to hate groups. Tells
you called her Brenda in your notes again.
No, I called her Davida.
No, you didn't. I'm literally reading it. It says Sarah and Mrs. Hingle are talking with Brenda. Nancy.
Nancy.
Her name is Nancy.
Okay, I'm fixing that again. All right. All right. Sarah and Mrs. Single are talking to Nancy, not Brenda, and telling them about the first class way that the ex people will treat their students that are not going to the actual school. That she would only go a couple times a month. They take her via limo. They take care of her. Um, Meanwhile, Sarah has been fully converted to humanity first, it seems, and May and Push have follow her, and the mini Cerebro stops working. We learn that there is some sort of shielding from it, and we see Sarah meet the leader of the group, Magneta, the mistress of magnetism. My brain is the pudding of Mary Jane from the Dark Web miniseries.
We're not talking about that. Stop talking about that. That doesn't exist. We're not talking about that.
I'm sorry. May webs her face, and this gives the two time to escape because she has used her powers of magnetism to ensnare them with the vents underneath the building that they were standing on. May slides off the wall because of apparently the iron in her blood and slides off into the ground. Magneta takes a convertible and flies it up in the air with May attached to it. Sarah protests this situation with Nancy because Nancy's, an actual mutant. Mayday may not be a mutant, but Nancy is, and she has no, beef with mutants, right? This then continues when she sees that Magneta doesn't care about anyone but herself, and if few humans get hurt, then what's the harm? What's the foul? So May continues to fall in the air, tries to stop the situation with the webs, and has very little success in stopping it. May thinks, though, this is going to hurt when she's pushed back up into the air, and the car stops itself from falling because Push is actually using her powers thanks to the rush of adrenaline. Did I miss Elon's escape? I did miss Elon's escape.
Really?
No, I didn't. Did I miss it? I don't think I missed it. No, I haven't missed it yet. Ron got me confused. Anyway, so unless that was earlier in the issue, I don't
think
remember.
You might have.
Did I miss it? No. Oh God, yeah. Elon escaped via tank.
Yeah, so Elon escapes via a tank with a Green Goblin face on it. She was flirting with the guard. Pretty sure the guard died.
Yeah, the guard is dead. Yeah, the guard died.
And then she swims away.
Yeah. Yes.
And goes. And
that's when. Yeah.
And then next time we see her, she is in the penthouse of evil.
Yes. So that was right before Mayday and Push go investigate things. So yes I'm sorry, Ron.
All right, I tuned you out. Otherwise, I would have called you out too. Thank you, Ron, for calling him out.
Ron calling me out. That's fun. All right. So Sarah is scared and terrified, running off because, obviously, with the situation, she doesn't know who to trust. And then Mayday thinks, well, could this possibly get worse? But it does get worse, though, as Fury does her part to start with Project Changeling, entering in a coded number sequence to start the process. And April then wakes up. I won't press the button despite my wanting to.
Just do it. Just do it.
Okay. To be continued. I could do this after every issue of this particular story arc.
Yeah, you kind of can. Yeah. So, so as I have all of these random thoughts I wrote in the bottom of this that I should have brought up when you were talking. But when Normie tells Peter that he doesn't want to call the paramedics because he didn't want to remind his new wife of who his grandfather is, I just, again, got to keep talking about this because this is something I want to talk about. He kept this whole thing from her. And again, this is a pattern. He does not tell Brenda anything at all, ever. And then expects her to not do things she wants to do. Dressing up in her superhero outfit.
Yeah.
Because we're going to see that later where he's like, I thought we agreed. I just want to say, he's not being honest with her. And this is the start. This is the beginning. So anyway, and I wrote on here like even if this was their honeymoon, and then I wrote, yeah, should I go into the whole thing again? Because like I literally wrote, I was like, he must have spent hours by himself alone, stalking out his grandfather's hidden lairs. And what was Brenda doing? Brenda isn't vapid or stupid, so I really can't get over this because what was she doing? Where was Brenda? And again, I've spoken before with this in rants, but I have so many questions about their honeymoon. Again, another untold tale of Spider-Girl. What the heck happened here? Like, did they spend any actual time together? And no, don't answer that in the comments. This is a family show, even if I've cursed a lot during this episode. But you know, I at least want to understand how a whirlwind romance with two very young adults that resulted in getting married with one of them in the hospital bed, and then they spend their honeymoon all summer in Europe, and I'm guessing like apart a lot, so one could go dig up his grandfather's bull crap. And there's that time where Frogo told me that he felt like their relationship was rock solid, and I just want to bring this up.
Frogo, we know you're going to be watching this later because
I'm sorry I keep calling you out, but we can disagree. I just have questions here. I also, again, this is the issue. I want to mention Emma Honeybun from Portsmouth, England, in asking for May's big eyes back, because we all know how I feel about those eye shells. And if you are listening, Emma, I am continuing your request 12 years later in audio format. It's definitely going on deaf ears now, but I'm requesting it. I like the big eyes.
Yeah, me too. Shout out to the rest of the people: John, Andrew, Jim, Reggie, Joseph, Matthew, Emma, and Jared in the letters page. So, Kelly, I don't got a ton of thoughts on this. We want to just
most of my thoughts from the last issue are straight up.
So
straight up, just I have questions about Normie and Brenda's relationship, and I just do.
So,
all right,
ASG 23 will be done by Kelly. So Kelly's going to do the recap of this one.
As you finish your recap for 24.
Shh. Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So ASG 23 cover date is October 2008. It was on the shelf on August 13th, 2008. And the title is Did Someone Say Clones? And again, I want to make mention that the editor was changed from Molly Laser to Tom Brennan on this issue. And as everybody's pointed out, I think the Face group or MySpace Facebook mashup, I think starts this issue, but I can't remember if it started before or not. So, and I literally reread this today, but it does. I think it starts at the beginning of the story, but it might be a change from this issue. I'll double check later. But the title might be Did Someone Say Clones? But I would like to call this first page Did Someone Ask for Mutants? The X-People and Jubilee are out in full force, casing the hideout of the Sisterhood. We have Eagle, Simeon, Torque, and Spanner with Jubilee, which I believe we met most of them, if not all of them, in J2. So Jubilee tries to cut Spider-Girl out of the case, and even though Push vouches for Spider-Girl, the X-People are still a bit prickly about our web-slinger assisting with finding Sarah. Meanwhile, Peter has some very unhinged things to say to a sleeping baby Benji, while Mary Jane listens in, horrified as he goes on, like how he's never going to let anything happen to his Benny boy. No one is ever going to harm him, kidnap him, hold him hostage. He'll never have to suffer like his sister did, telling the sleeping baby that even he thought May had died until Kane rescued her. Or so Kane says. At the Osborn Tower, Normie and Brenda are cuddling by a fire, and Brenda tries to figure out what the big mystery is, since all she knows is that Normie seems to be stressed out and keeps disappearing below the 8th floor sublevel to his basement lavatory. Normie half lies and says he's working on a personal project with Peter. Nothing for Brenda to be concerned about, just an old family thing, which normally if an Osborn tells you that, you should be concerned. As you know, the body double aka April, wakes up from stasis. Totally nothing to worry about, Brenda. Nothing at all. Doesn't concern her. A. Osborne, now. Anyway, the next morning, as May gets ready to leave for school in one of my favorite outfits she wears in all of this series, Mary Jane asks May if she's noticed anything different about her father, which May has noticed that he seems to be taking fault in everything she says and is deliberately avoiding her, but she doesn't bring it up. So Mary Jane drops it, growing dark, and May has enough on her plate. She wants to watch Sarah's back and find a little time to look for Fury since she's busted out of Rikers. But at least her mom has noticed something going on with her dad, too. It's not just May noticing this. Maybe something is stressing him out. Sadly, May can't think too much about this as her spider sense goes off, telling her that the X people seem to have Sarah covered. She can see Eagle and Simeon watching for Sarah on her way to school. At school, Moose asks for a minute of May's time, which she isn't keen to give if Moose is just going to start talking smack about Spider-Girl. Moose admits that he feels guilty for Sarah getting involved in a fight with Spider-Girl and wants to apologize but needs some help with it. May tells him she needs to speak to Jean, and even Moose tells her that she did good by finally dissing Thompson because Thompson is a tool. Literally the biggest red flag is when your friends don't like your boyfriend, May. And zero of your friends like your boyfriend. And of course, as I write, May did nothing wrong in stopping Jean from hitting Wes. He had his he had his arms around Simone. So May tries to talk to Jean, but he asks her to talk to him after football practice, reminding her to waste her time once more staring at him tackling dudes and doing random drills. Great. So Wes tries to cheer May up, but she distances herself. Talking to Wes got her on the outs with Jean in the first place. The Humanity First bros skip school to talk to Marjorie Taylor Greene, Dr. Manning. In the abandoned church. Come on, Zach, you know.
Oh boy, I had myself on mute. Woo, that's spicy.
It's not spicy, it's the truth.
I know, but it can be construed as spicy.
Anyway, so they talked to Dr. Marjorie Taylor Manning in its abandoned church. She gets mad at Davida since the kids complain how Davida denied them a chance to open a chapter at their school and called them a hate group, which they are. Back at school, Davida finally drops some real wisdom on a sulking May. She calls out May's phases about seemingly trying to prove that she's a perfect, normal teen. But the truth is, every teenager is a freak and outsider sometimes. And hey, honestly, so is everyone all the time, and you never grow out of it. So just let your freak flag fly as long as it's not about hurting anybody. The girls have a heart-to-heart and joke about a finger-off shoe sale. In the school library, Simone tells her friend Lindsay about how Jean spilled a secret to her. That Jean is the one who sabotaged May's election campaign, something we all previously knew, but this is our solid confirmation. Jean was the one writing quitter, loser, and other hurtful remarks on her election campaign posters. Even Lindsay starts to question what Simone would see in a guy who'd do something like that to his girlfriend, because she has more common sense than Simone, but because Simone hates herself. She seems to think that she'll be treated differently, even though she wasn't the last time he ran to her, and in some ways actually got treated worse, but I digress. And she tells Lindsay that if Jean and May do patch things up, she's going to spill Jean's confession and humiliate them both. So, wow. Great person. Simone's just an awesome person. Wes hears this as the girls leave, and he heard everything. As lunch approaches, May debates on what to do. Focus on Sarah, listen to Davida, try to talk to Jean again and just not listen to Davida, hunt down Fury, or answer her cell. She answers her cell, it's Dark Devil, asking her what Peter Parker would want with Kane. This sets off alarms with May, and she quickly changes to meet up. Could this meeting be related to her dad's bad mood, or is this about his own hunt for the Goblin Queen? At the Goblin Cult Penthouse hideout, Fury and Renee talk about Project Changeling and how even they don't know the goal Norman Osborn had for this plan. Fury just thinks that that it has to reunite her with Normie, thinking that this plan proves that Normie's choice to not be a goblin was never really his decision to make. Her codes that she's punched in causes the stasis chamber to explode, and May's body double, April, comes waking up in a full rage, grabbing Normie by the throat and lifting him up off the floor, because this is a Parker trait at this point. Kane waits on a rooftop for Peter. Peter starts going on and on and on, asking Kane if he knew, but Kane legitimately doesn't know what Peter's talking about, and even calls him drunk for how manic this conversation seems to be. Peter starts trying to fight with Kane, which once Kane realizes Peter isn't going to stop with this, he starts to fight back, just defending himself. Peter starts on about the babies switched at birth, clones, stasis chambers, Project Changeling. Kane, so confused that he's not even sure if Peter's talking about the grandfather Norman Osborn or the kid. Just kind of is very lost to Peter's ramblings. Peter keeps on, now sure that Kane has betrayed them and totally knew about all of this from the beginning, because why else is he looking at you like you have two heads, Peter? Yes, he's totally hiding things. All right. And Kane is, we're not sure how he's getting this from Kane being confused and asking questions, but all right. And as Peter wails on Kane, Dark Devil and Spider-Girl come in to try to get Peter to stop. But even as Dark Devil and Spider-Girl try to get Peter to calm down, Peter seems to just get even angrier and runs back to Kane, wailing on him some more while declaring that he won't let Kane destroy his family, demanding to know who is real. Peter's spider sense goes off and he thinks it's Dark Devil coming from behind, and Peter growls to tell Dark Devil to stay back as he swings back to hit the threat, and he just barely misses May. This seems to stop the boiling rage, but Peter rushes to talk to May, Peter refuses to talk to May about what's going on and walks away. Kane reassures May that he really has no clue as to what's going on. But May knows that she heard Switched and Osborn, so it looks like it's time to make a call to Normie. Meanwhile, Brenda goes down to the actual Brenda, Zach, goes down to the lab to look for Normie.
I knew she made it eventually in the story, okay?
When she finds him passed out in the floor of his trashed basement lab. Back at Midtown High, because, the whole excursion with Dark Devil was just May's lunch hour. She can't seem to get a hold of Normie, and her dad is screening her calls now too. She just doesn't understand about this switch her father seems obsessed with. And what does this have to do with clones and Normie's grandfather? May's really lost too. Why would her dad accuse Kane of putting the family in danger? May's spider sense goes off, but she hasn't felt it before, so what was that? Was it one of the X people checking up on Sarah? May chalks her jumpiness up to nerves and tries to chill out. She decides she's going to have faith that things will calm down. Oh boy, how wrong is she? The Humanity First group meets up with Brad in the hallway, telling him that his friend Kirby has been deemed a traitor by the fake doctor. They ask Brad if he's going to pick his friend or side with them. May sees Sarah on the phone looking panicked. She's being told by Magneta to pick a side, to pick the sisterhood or suffer the consequences, which doesn't seem like picking a side at all. May asks she can help Sarah, but Sarah runs from her, telling her that ultimately no one can help. This is her choice, and it's her decision, and hers alone. But May isn't about to let Sarah face the sisterhood alone, and she heads towards the roof. First, she bumps into Brad, who is also panicked and asking where he can find Moose. He tells May what's happening with Humanity First and how he needs to find Moose to help fast. so he can help Davida. So just terrific. Great. Now May has to decide between helping save Davida or helping Sarah. She decides that once she's changed, she'll call the X people to watch over Sarah, and she'll just check on Sarah until they get there. When basically before she can go out to the roof to change, someone else is on the roof. She can sense through via her spider sense, and May guesses she can change before jumping onto the roof. But what if that's just a janitor? Like, it would like have more questions than answers if she did that. So May decides to take a quick peek to find out who is on the roof. And she finds out that she's on the roof. Someone who looks exactly like her, even down to her spectacular outfit, is there staring at her and kind of screaming at her that she stole her life. And now she's here to return the favor. To be continued.
This one deserves it. Okay, I'm sorry.
Fine.
The final splash page is a homage to the beginning, really the beginning of the Clone Saga, which was Spectacular Spider-Man number 215. Peter goes on the roof of the, or Ben Reilly goes up towards the roof as Peter's arriving to the roof to go visit Aunt May, and they confront each other, and they're like, you. And so that's definitely a homage. Love this issue. Love Peter's very realistic
descent
anger.
into madness. I mean, he's having
Yes.
seriously, it's a trauma response. Like, he is losing his mind from this. Like, this is his worst nightmare. And this is stuff that is exactly something Norman Osborn would want to cause Peter.
Oh yeah, he's playing completely into Peter's fears, and like considering how intrinsically
Even
tied,
from beyond the grave, he has pulled this final.
This is like a hairy robot parents level of like Machiavellian type of plot.
A lot better told. I will give it that. The
Oh,
clone
yeah.
part is far better told than robot parents.
This is Tom DeFalco telling a clone story without the salespeople telling him what to do. I mean, that's the bottom line, and because that's ultimately what happened in the original Clone Saga. So I love Kane's reaction and Kane's confusion, and I love how Peter just is not thinking. And part of it is that his mind's a little cloudy.
Well, it's not even that he's cloudy. He's running off shock.
Yes, he really is. He's running off of like pure panic, because this is like the absolute. He knows how much the clone situation turned his life upside down, and it's taking him back to that time period before May was born and all that trauma that May has no idea about. Kane should have some idea about, but the way Peter's going about it, he's talking in circles. He's not being clear.
And as we were going to talk about probably a little later, because I guess I should have mentioned it as well, but our friend Ron Friends is also bringing it up. He is being influenced by goblin juice,
Yes.
which blew up in his face, which again was the homage and the foreshadowing with the Green Goblin. But the thing is, of course, we don't know that at this time necessarily, but you can start getting those hints. But like I said, like, I really do feel like a lot of what's triggering these emotions and kind of make, like, the emotions are heightened by the goblin juice. But the way I always read this is the emotions are coming from Peter. Like, these are genuine emotions. It's just things are running 10 times higher.
Yeah.
100 times higher. But yeah, it's Pete's losing his mind.
Yes, he's being influenced by the goblin goo, but
yeah. And poor May has a lot on her plate. A lot on her plate.
Yeah. So we'll go into the final issue of the episode.
Yeah. Do you want to bring up the last comment before we
Oh
jump
yeah,
in?
the
'Cause
trauma is very real,
the
as he
trauma,
says.
I mean, it is.
Vinkman does make a point. ASG 20 through 22 had the old recap pages, and 23 and 24 had the Facebook group ones. And he
Yes.
distinctly remembers listing Mayday's moods as grumbly, and confused because
Yeah, and that's what I thought too. That's what I was saying. Like, they didn't happen because earlier I think you had said that maybe they changed because of the editor, and I think it happened. It started at the start of this story, start of
Yeah.
Brand New May, but it's just
It hap-
before Molly leaves.
yes,
Yeah.
and I think they mentioned in the letters page too that it was Irene Lee in the bullpen for designing the recap and
Yes.
redesigning the letters page too. So that is, we want to make sure that we credit everybody that was a part of the book.
Exactly.
So we go to the final issue of the episode. November cover date November 2008. On sale date was September 10th of 2008. The title of this issue is My Enemy, Myself. I'm doing the breakdown. Our opening splash page, if the last issue's splash page, final splash page, references Spectacular Spider-Man number 215, then this references Web of Spider-Man number 116, the start of Power and Responsibility. So May is confronted by April, who demands that she takes back her life. May dodges her and takes off. Brenda finds Normie at the lab, and he explains that it's all Project Changeling. He has to call Peter, who answers with a green hooded figure grinning over his shoulder, and he runs off. More foreshadowing. Davita calls. Mayday is nearby. She's trying to get Davita's trying to get Mayday to come out to Finger Roths to go on a sale, but Davita is saved by some punks by May, and she doesn't even know it.
So can we talk about how, like, they were talking about buying Dayglow crocodile sandals or not?
I mean, I was gonna let you talk about that after we got done with the issue.
No, I
like,
mean, I'm just
Crocs
saying.
are back.
I'm just these aren't Crocs. They're sandals. They're crocodile skin sandals.
Oh,
Crocs weren't around this time.
you would know better
No,
than I would. I don't.
These are like Dayglow neon, but dyed crocodile skin sandals is what they're talking about. And I just want to bring that up because maybe these muggers could have saved Davita from a bad fashion choice. And you can move on.
All right. So her dad tries to call during this time too, as she's talking to Davita. Meanwhile, Renee and Fury are talking about the Project Changeling, but the Order of the Goblin is being very coy with the info, so they don't have much to go on. So she gets her new assignment and she takes off. May then calls Push to see if Push has eyes on Sarah. Push does indeed have her eyes on Sarah, and we notice Sarah, wandering around aimlessly, but she continues to just get angry. May takes off trying to talk to Peter, but he's out of service. Meanwhile, at Midtown, Wes confronts Jean about what he learned in the past issue. Jean takes him under his wing. This won't end well, because it doesn't. Peter and May keep playing phone tag because they're going back and forth because they're calling each other when they're trying to, call waiting was not working, but let's put it this way.
Well, it's too. I think we've talked about this before where it's like, when things are running high and you're running errands and it's like, it almost causes the phone tag because it's just you're doing too much at once instead of sitting and patiently waiting. And that's kind of what both of them are doing because the stakes are feeling pretty high.
Yes.
So anyway.
Sorry. No, I got a text. They're going to keep texting me if I didn't respond. All right. So Fury attacks Peter, and he dodges the attacks and then is defeated by her pink gas pumpkin bomb. Going back and forth, like Fury's confused as to why she's like supposed to capture Peter Parker. So
and of course she's also confused because it's like, how is he moving like that? I thought he was, in her words, an old man.
A one-legged man. How's a one-legged man dodging the attacks? Yeah. So she's confused on multiple accounts. May gets back to school. May is looking for Wes, and she sees Wes, and Wes has a big, giant black eye. And Mayday knows exactly who did it and yells his name, Gene Thompson. Meanwhile, Sarah has showed up to the Humanity First headquarters and then just decides to attack it out in her anger. Push is like, oh, well, if stuff goes sideways, I'm supposed to call Jubilee of the X people, so she calls the cavalry in. We then cut to May confronting Gene on the football field, and it's like, why did you give him a freaking black eye? And Mayday finally learns the truth thanks to his antics.
Okay, in fairness, he told on himself.
Yes. Oh, I was about to say, he finally lets it slip that he was the one that sabotaged the campaign, and this causes Mayday's brain to break, like the glass to shatter, and the illusion is fully broken now. She realizes things and finally unloads on him. Saying that she needs to get help, and she finally tells him how the cow ate the cabbage, and she walks off, trying not to cry.
She also did yank off her own necklace and just toss it at him.
Yeah.
And it's not like it doesn't seem like it's a special necklace. This is just.
I wonder if he gave her that necklace.
Maybe, but I don't know. So that's kind of where it's like, all we know is this seemingly like she just chucks it at his head, which, I mean, it's a good chunky necklace. Like,
that medallion piece like hits him right in the face, and probably could have potentially gave him a black eye, depending on
how hard she threw it.
Exactly. So good on you, May. Good job.
Yay!
Round of applause for May.
I mean, her heart's broken. I feel bad for her.
You feel bad for her, but like,
it's a good. The weird thing is, it's like that first bad relationship. It's a good bad. Like, we're glad that this is over.
Mm-hmm.
But
yes,
we
hate it for you feel empathy for May because of what happened, but at the same time you're like, finally.
Yeah, we're one of her friends here. We're in the back.
We are DeVita in this situation, and we're like, finally.
DeVita wouldn't give her courtesy. DeVita would be like, nah, dog, I told you.
That's true. So
and then she'd also probably run and kick Gene's butt too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So Push calls Mayday, saying it, and Mayday's like, it's not a good time, but informs her of what's going on with the Humanity First headquarters, and of course this has caused her to take off, while April sees May and goes after her. When we get a couple pages of the two struggling to get, they're kind of fighting amongst each other, and April's talking about how May stole her life, how that costume should be hers, and Push is struggling with helping the X people with Sarah, because Sarah is just completely out of control. Meanwhile, also Aranya is called in and is told to extract Mayday, and Mayday tries to reason with Sarah, even exposing her secret and telling her the truth that she should have been a better friend to her when she had the chance. And this causes her to start to calm down. And just as she does calm down, Magneto decides to overload her little suit and cause a massive explosion, which seemingly hurts Mayday. We get a news break back at Forest Hills, and MJ sees the report that Mayday might have been caught in the blast when April shows up at the house, and there are doubts by the first responders if anyone actually survived the explosion, and it's not the end.
Even though we do see a tattered piece of wetsuit.
There is a tattered piece in the rubble, but not the end.
Not the end. So one thing I do want to bring up that I didn't actually write in, because I thought you'd at least talk about it. Mm-hmm. But there's a huge character development moment for Push, because as we know, Nancy doesn't want to be a superhero. She wants to be a doctor. And this is kind of where she has to save the X people.
Mm-hmm. She goes from being a trainee.
So this is her real big hero moment, even though it's almost a footnote because it's a Spider-Girl comic. But I want to mention that because it's a really good character development moment for Nancy, and we love that for her. And then so one of the things, there's a panel, and it kills me in the best way. I get really excited when I see it because it's just great. Where Peter instinctively goes to web shoot Fury after he tackles, but obviously he doesn't have web shooters, despite Miss Williams thinking that Raimi films are the only context you need for writing Spider-Girl.
Sorry.
I stand by that statement. I'm mad. Do not call yourself a comic book historian and then not do your homework. I'm sorry. Just don't.
Folks,
Don't do it.
she's just a little salty. Not just a little, she's really salty.
I'm a lot salty.
A lot salty.
Anyway, I enjoy those little things, and we get a lot of that, obviously, which is a testament to just how well loved and known like the history is with our wonderful creative team. Because that's something that I think like most of the time we'd probably overlook, because it's so quintessentially Peter to have that like ingrained in him after all this time. Like that's going to be his first instinct, is to just go. But obviously it's not, you know, he doesn't have that. And again, as we're talking about, like it could also be trauma based from us talking about a lot of trauma. But, you know, not many comics nowadays gives you those tiny little details in the panel, you know, that gives you so much depth and context to a story without it needing to be spelled out. Like if this was today, that would be spelled out for some reason, even though we should know this. So I just, again, want to point out just how awesome those little moments are, and I appreciate them greatly. But, you know, as I like to do, way to tell on yourself, Jean. And I feel so bad for May, because I totally get not wanting to have, you know, really not wanting to have to do anything after something like that, but cry in a corner, because her heart's shattered. She really wanted to make that work for some reason. But you know how, you know, she just wants to be able to go lick her wounds and her bruised, you know, I mean, her heart's broken. But I commend her for pushing it down and getting back into the fight, because she feels like she has that responsibility. You know, you have to think about like how her emotions are in all of this. Like she does not get a break to really tackle her feelings on Jean, like her heartbreak, because she gets thrown into this insanity that really ultimately, like, this is the last issue we're talking about, but the stakes, everything gets turned up to 11 now. We are running into some very hot water here.
Yeah.
So, but that's really all I have to say.
So I want to bring up a couple of comments from Vinkman. He says, just like the beaker exploding, Peter being attacked is an homage to 39 and 40 ASM.
Uh-huh.
And that Peter instinctively trying to web shoot is also a nod to ASM.
Ah, okay.
So thank you to Vinkman.
Thank you, Vinkman.
And Ron Friend says, good catch. So yeah. So again, my thoughts on this are really simple, and I kind of mentioned that through the recap. Yes, finally, Jean is no longer going to menace us as the boyfriend. He is now officially the ex-boyfriend, and I am okay with it. So the Jean saga is finally over. Love the cliffhanger. This is a great way to go into a anniversary issue, and we'll be covering that obviously next episode. Really, really excited about that. Just a real fun time. This is a real fun story, and it's a great way, even though it's the kind of the end of the arc, it's definitely a pause in the arc, because this brand new May story may not have the branding on the top of the book, but this story takes us all the way to the end of the volume.
Yeah.
And beyond.
It really does. And it's one of those moments too, and kind of, it's such a clear pause that it's a good place for us to stop, even though it's kind of a larger issue than normal. And I don't know what happened, but you have a weird face. Not normally,
sorry.
just you made a weird face.
No, I was looking suspiciously at my dog. I don't know what he was doing.
Oh, interesting. But yeah, no, when I said earlier, like, we're in the end game now, like, I remember reading 20 and feeling dread. Of course, looking back at it now, like, these are some of the most fun, 10 issues we're going to have, and I enjoy it. but I kind of knew from that moment that that was the end of Amazing Spider-Girl, and this really kicks that off.
Yeah.
But this is definitely a different fight for May, um, and now we have clones.
And then there were clones, and of course, Ron's telling Venkman that he's just showing off.
Well, it happens.
We do have an email.
We do.
I don't know if I can read it because it.
I hope you can't. You might have to pull it up via email. I tried.
Okay, no, I got it. I got it.
Cool.
I got it. Okay. I have to like move it around a little bit. So
yeah, fair.
All right. So we do have an email. It says, "Good week for Mayday fans." This was sent to us back in December. It says, "Hello, Zach and Kelly. Still catching up on the podcast backlog, but I saw the news about May being introduced in the Across the Spider-Verse and thought of you guys. When my best friend found out that May is in the movie, he texted, 'I feel like crying tears of joy,' and that, quote, 'this might be the best thing to Spider-Man in years.' So needless to say, we are both very excited, and I'm sure you guys are as well. I hope this is a bellwether and not a one-off event. Keep up the good work on the podcast. Best wishes, RH." So thank you, Russell.
Yeah,
really appreciate that.
I definitely appreciate it. I love when we get emails. But yeah, I'm excited for Baby May, especially now that I've kind of sat on it, because she is a very different, Baby May, especially for this movie, is not going to be our Mayday. But I think that there's some fun in that. And then two, I really appreciate the nod, even though I'm getting a little annoyed with the duochrome situation, because thanks TikTok. I appreciate like the little like one streak of brown hair on her red hair, or her red-haired head, and like the one brown eye, one blue eye, because it's very clear that they're trying to mismatch, like kind of do all these different versions of May, and it's almost kind of like, here's the baby, and she could be any of them. And that's kind of the beauty of it, and I think that's the story they're going to kind of tell, and maybe that will bring us into seeing some different Maydays in the movie. We will see, but
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I mean, I saw her, and it's not the one that the guy tried to tell us, because that was clearly Superior Spider-Man.
Yes, it was.
What's his face off Discord? But I did see her like walking around, so I did put those screenshots up when I first saw it. So we do see the suit, and we do see Spider-Girl in a glorified cameo, at least in the trailer. So we'll see what we get. But I'm excited.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, I'm definitely excited. And definitely looking forward to it. We'll be doing a lot of talk between all the shows on the network. I know we're going to be talking about it on Spidey Dude Experience. We'll talk about it obviously here. If there's any Mayday updates, we'll talk about it here.
Yeah.
We're going to do a big old huge stream, I think, the weekend, the opening weekend, where we'll do a big review. And Kelly, you can jump on. Trying to invite everybody across the entire.
We will see. Yeah. Oh, hey, actually, that's a great idea. Inviting everybody from all the Spider-Man podcasts to do a big Spider-Verse discussion.
Yes. So that's something I am looking forward to doing.
We should definitely do that and invite everybody and guilt trip them into doing it, because it'd be cool and positive.
Yes, exactly. You mentioned the Discord. If you go over to spidey-dude.com, you can always go even on mobile, and you can click on the top upper right-hand corner, and you can join our Discord. The little Discord link is up there, over there by the Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and YouTube links. So you can always go over there and join our Discord, so you can always participate in the conversations that we have every single day. We want to make a big announcement, right?
Are we?
That's up. Are we doing it now?
Are we? I left that up to you.
I mean, I figure we can talk about it. So the plans are tentative.
Okay, they're still tentative. Okay, because I was
Yes.
like, if we could hammer them out, then we're good. But I also don't want to be part of the conversation, because I get scared.
So we have tentative plans, and we will definitely have them confirmed by next episode.
Okay. So how about this? why don't we just ask if you have a Spider-Girl question that
Mhm.
you've never heard anywhere else and you really, really want to know about it, maybe leave it, send us an email or tweet at us or find some way to get to us and just give us that question. We really would like to know it, and maybe we will get an answer for you at some point within reason at some
Yeah,
time. There we go.
there will probably be there will be some editorial influence. We'll definitely look them over. We're not just going to ask,
Yeah, no, I'm not. There's some questions I've seen on the internet. It's not happening.
Yes. Yeah.
That's not
So,
happening.
but if you want to get answers for those questions, the potential of that happening in the month of February is looking likely, but we'll double
Okay.
check and we'll see. We'll definitely have a bigger, major announcement for not next episode, but the following episode.
Wait.
So, if
We'll talk about it,
stars
but we're
align.
going to talk about it next episode.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about it more
Yes.
extensively in next episode. We're just teasing
Okay.
it right now. We're
Yeah.
teasing it right now.
We're teasing an idea. And yeah, so next episode. Oh,
We do have a quick comment. It
Ah!
says, thanks for our insights, guys. The scene with Pete and Kane and Mayday breaking up with Jean are two of his favorites in the entire series. So,
I mean, I enjoy May breaking up with Jean a lot.
listen, this goes without saying, but the artwork,
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. Like
even though that we got Small Eyes Mayday, even though
yes, okay. Look, I still like the art in the series. I'm just saying
her preference is the big eyes. That's all.
big-
That's all she's saying.
yeah. I agree with Emma.
Exactly.
I wouldn't have brought it up if I hadn't just read that one line.
That's true. That's true. So, yeah. So what are we going to cover next episode, Kel?
Okay, so next episode, we are going to focus on Amazing Spider-Girl 25, 26, and 27. I know that seems like it might be short, but the 25th issue is a double issue. It's got 4 stories, I believe. I have to double check. But it's I wrote really simple, really beyond the which is really not simple. Like I said, 25 is a double issue, and we will in 25 we will get more backstory when it comes to this whole Project Changeling, along with if our May is alive and okay, and we'll see some of Anya's plan, her very weird plan. So hang tight, true believers. 2023 is just getting started for Make Mine Mayday. And while we're about to hit some turbulent waters story-wise, I'm glad you guys are all here for the ride.
Yep. And
as we've joked, this is Mayday. We're reviewing like Mayday's. We're starting to get into Mayday's dark time.
This is the last of the good time. Well,
it is the
spectacular
last.
is the last of the good time.
Last of the good time, but it's we're starting to get into some very dicey water for our girl.
That don't involve Ron Friends and Tom DeFalco.
Yes.
That's the key point. All right.
Yeah.
So with that, we're going to wrap this episode up. Once again, I want to thank our patrons at patreon.com/SpideyDude Network for helping sponsor this episode of the show. Vinkman, Scott, Greg, Keegor, Phoenician, Kale, Georgia, Jessica, Catherine, Cindy, Jurgen, and Laura. Oh, if we get any more patrons, we're going to have to completely redo our entire graphic here. Thanks again for your support of all of our shows here on the Spidey Dude Radio Network. Shows such as Clone Saga Chronicles, Spectacular Radio, the Salby Cinema Era podcast. Coming soon, Books of X, the Patreon first show. This show, Make My Mayday, and the Spidey Dude experience. Yeah, that's what's going on.
At least you said Chasm. I would have said something else.
You would have said something else, but yes, we'll be covering more of the dark web story next week here on the Spidey Dude Radio Network here on the YouTube page. So join us if you will, and take a listen to all of our shows here on the network. And we'll have more audio episodes coming out very soon, probably next week. So looking forward to that. So if you are following us on Spotify, the shows should be updating, but if they're not, let me know. I'm trying to get the Spotify stuff to sort itself out. It's been kind of a weird thing. There were certain episodes not showing up, and
It's been a weird thing. I mean, there was this whole issue where a certain show that should have been scrubbed, one special episode still remained.
Yes, yes.
Although
You know what?
I'm fine with that staying up
No,
personally.
everybody's fine with it staying up. At this point, they don't. The powers that be don't care. So,
Yeah.
You can go to Spotify, check out all of our shows on Spotify, including Voices from the Area Gargoyles podcast. That is one of our most popular shows. It's done really well. A lot of our patrons will love that show. Be sure to check out the new Gargoyles series written by Greg Wiseman. If you have not already, it's actually very new reader friendly, and coming soon, we might have some video for that particular show. So stay tuned on that. And without further ado, I wish you guys good night. We'll see you guys next time here on the Spidey Dude Radio Network and Make Mine Mayday. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on our social medias at Spidey Dude Network on Facebook and Instagram. Twitter is at Spidey Dude Radio and at Make Mine Mayday, youtube.com/Spidey Dude Radio Network. Give us that like, give us that share, give us that subscribe, and find us on TikTok as well. Make Mine Mayday and at Spidey Dude Network. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening if you're listening to the audio edition. And we will bid you guys good night. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.